Good morning and happy holidays. We are so excited to have you all today for our Black Friday, Cyber Monday, Unboxing Holiday Trends webinar. Before we jump in, just a few legal notes. We have a lot of content to cover, but on your screen, you will see a sidebar to the right of the main stage where you can submit questions. At the end of the presentation, we will host a Q&A and answer a few audience questions. So please get your questions in early for us. In the same sidebar, you will see a tab labeled Docs. This is where you can download a copy of today's slides. And above your screen, you have a button to request a fulfillment expert from Flexport to reach out to you if you'd like to get in touch with someone from our wonderful fulfillment team. Just on a brief legal note, please keep in mind that all information provided in this session is based on the situation at this current time and may not be customized to your business requirements. We always recommend reaching out to a Flexport expert to discuss your particular situation. Now, without further ado, the fun stuff. Let me welcome up to the stage our host, Meegan. And again, I should introduce myself. My name is Courtney Heger. I'm the Senior Director, Head of Marketing and Communications here at Flexport. Darby, you want to introduce yourself?
Happy holidays, everyone. I'm Darby Meegan. I lead our Omnichannel business development team here at Flexport. That is our fulfillment warehouses that are shipping like crazy this week for Black Friday, Cyber Monday.
So before we jump in, Darby, I'm going to ask, did you shop this Cyber Week?
I was working at the warehouse myself, though my wife sent me pictures of both of her orders that she placed from a customer we will be talking about in a bit. So I did not, but my wife got hers in double. How about you? Did you get anything great?
I got everything great. I think I single-handedly might have supported the U.S. economy this past week. So at least that's what my husband tells me. But I also was able to shop a few Flexport customers. I got a few holiday dresses from Hill House Home, so hoping those work out for me. But yeah, there's a lot of good customers to shop and support. Well, we have a lot to cover today. We're going to go over consumer spending, e-commerce and channel trends, promotion strategies, and the impacts of tariffs. That's a new one for us. We've done this webinar a couple of years in a row now, and I don't think we've gotten to talk customs or tariffs yet. So that'll be new. And then inventory, fulfillment, returns, all of the operational good stuff. And then, of course, looking ahead and what brands can do to plan. First, let's open up with a poll question just to get the audience warmed up. Okay, so take a look. So did you exceed, meet, or fall below your Black Friday, Cyber Monday sales expectations? As a reminder, this is an anonymous survey. We will not share your name, so please vote. It helps everyone get insights. I'm going to give it a minute. So, okay, we're still tabulating here. Again, this is anonymous. It just helps everyone get a little check on data. So, okay, it actually looks, fairly even spread here where some have exceeded goals, some met, and some fell short. So let's talk a little bit about what we saw, because I think depending on how you define success, right, that's actually going to very much play into this poll. Okay, let's hop back into the deck. Perfect. Amazing. We're going to talk about the different forces shaping this year's holiday shopping season. And really what we're looking at is there's these 5 primary forces that we see playing a role in how the holiday shopping season is playing out. The first is consumers spent more but bought less, which is actually where I think we're probably seeing an interesting spread across that poll result, because while sales are up, units are down. The amount customers are buying are actually down. The second is behaviors are changing in how consumers shop and what's driving that shopping behavior, including mobile and also buy now, pay later, which is also really interesting as we think about consumer purchasing power. The third is inventory levels and tariffs and how those impacted different brands' discount strategies. We'll dive more into that in a bit. And then I joke, Cyber Month, like it's not Cyber Week even anymore. It's not Cyber 5. I think promotion started mid-November. Amazon had their Prime Day in October. It's just like a full season now. So, but earlier promotions are here to stay, and we'll talk about how that was playing out for a number of retailers. And then last, would we even be a tech company if we didn't talk about how AI was changing shopping? So this number actually really surprised me. So we'll talk more about that as well. So these are the areas we're going to dive into today. If you, sorry, I'm driving slides. But first, let's look at what happened with consumer spending. Over Cyber 5, which if you're not familiar, that's essentially Thanksgiving through Cyber Monday, those 5 days. Now, the one thing I will say, if you go Google, these numbers vary a little bit, but we can use these directionally in what's been reported. But we're seeing around 44 billion in sales over Cyber 5, which is about 7% up from last year. Black Friday, Cyber Monday continue to be the tentpole days of the shopping season. And then while sales, actual dollars are up, we're seeing a decline in units per transaction by about 1 to 2%. And subsequently, and also an increase in average selling price. So again, people paying more to get less items, and we'll dive into this in a little bit. Darby, anything surprising to you here?
There's a lot that was surprising. I think one that was interesting and not called out here is e-commerce continued to accelerate on its general trend line that it's seen over the last few years, and retail was actually a softer than expected. Brick and mortar presence, was a softer than expected Black Friday. So that was the first thing that surprised me. The second one is we are continuing to see consumers spending, but what's also been reported and questioned is what is driving the consumer behavior as the sales grow throughout November. What day are they spending on? What is the incendiary spark that's actually getting them to change that or to click buy on that cart? And that's still being determined this year. And I think we're getting more data on the effectiveness of Black Friday, Cyber Monday, or even Cyber Month, or as you called it, I think.
Yeah, that's totally right. I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about Flexport's numbers. We have a lot to celebrate here as well. Black Friday was our biggest day in actual Flexport fulfillment history, which is pretty amazing. We doubled our growth in order volume and unit volume this year versus last. And we are 1 million shoppers around the country will receive a Flexport package, which I think is so exciting. Just seeing how this business has grown and what the team has done to take it to the next level. Operations quality. I've been in logistics for a while now. From order to front door, I actually checked with the team because I was like, is this right? We delivered in just an average of 3.5 days from when an order was received to when it made it to its front door with a 99.7 on-time delivery rate. That is insane. Darby, talk to me, because you were in the warehouse. Talk to me, how does this happen? Like, how do you get that? Because I'll be honest, like I said, I did a lot of shopping. I'm still waiting on stuff not everything was a Flexport customer. I'm still waiting on stuff. So, how do we average 3.5 days?
It's a great question. One is we work together with our brands and we forecast. We talked about this in the prep webinar, if you remember a few weeks ago, where providing those forecasts, whether it's inbound and outbound, are going to drive your destiny. Our team takes our customer forecast, builds up from the warehouse level for a multi-day, and then we also build our own forecast based on that, and we add in variability. So we actually, while seeing our volume grow 2x, we saw almost a 40% reduction in click to ship times because they're forecasting, working with our customers on getting those orders out on time is what's driving that delivery speed as well. So it sort of actually starts way like 12 weeks ago, and then it reaches forward now to the carriers. And even what we're seeing is largely a lot of the carriers are not having as much congestion as they have in years past. Notably, they built capacity. There's these startup carriers that are growing. So I think that's part of why you're seeing on-time delivery as well, as the carrier network is in a far better state, even with more packages than last year.
Awesome. Yeah, if you're not seeing these numbers, give us a call. The top performing, and I'm doing Darby's job now as business development, but the top performing sales channels, this one I thought was also great. Shopify continues to show the power of direct to consumer and the e-commerce brands. We'll talk a little bit more about Shopify just having another killer year. And then I think the one that maybe took everyone a little bit by surprise was TikTok Shop. So TikTok Shop, which we'll dive into later as well, had a lot of growth, but we saw double order volume year over year with TikTok Shop as well. And a lot of customers, even actually some of our customers, I think were some of the top brands on TikTok, which was really exciting. And just a big congratulations to all of our merchants this year. But I had to celebrate the top three. So Comfort, Everlane, and Pact, a huge shout out to them for really exceeding their goals and just hitting some pretty extraordinary numbers. I have to give some kudos, Drew Cook, President, CFO of Pact, but they delivered twice as much volume than last year. And, what we were able to do to make sure that we were delivering for them was pretty extraordinary. So a huge congratulations again to the Pact team, as well as some of our other customers. Darby, were you going to jump in? I think were you going to share?
Yeah, my wife bought 2 orders from Pact and the team. So she received the first one and then immediately placed another one that has not yet arrived. But she is fueling some of this for our household. While I was at the warehouse, she was sending me her second order. So yes.
That's awesome. Well, she can expect it in 3.5 days. So
That's right. That's right.
Awesome. Well, let's talk a little bit about consumer spending. Consumers, like we said, they're spending more to buy fewer items. And a lot of this is driven by tariffs and inflation, driving brands to raise prices. We saw 7% higher average selling prices versus 2024. And for reference, in past years, the average looked more like a 5% jump. So this is even a higher jump than what we would expect normal inflationary trends to have. Online prices for categories like home goods, furniture, appliances, apparel, clothes, and electronics, these all saw spikes as well, which again, I think is something we had predicted given the impact of tariffs on these categories. So while not surprising, I think this was probably frustrating for a lot of consumers. Even though it looks like there were big discounts, the prices still felt really steep across the board. So especially for these categories. Darby, what did you see or what did you hear on this?
Yeah, there was the Operators podcast, which is a big e-commerce popular podcast. They mentioned that consumers, they saw that sales that were offered earlier weren't drawing bigger volumes of sales as it stretched. Their commentary they gave is it seems that some of those sales are just being done at a lower price point as part of that. So an interesting piece of that is with the tariffs and inflation being what it is, the consumers are sort of hunting for the best deal, which is driving that stretch or even the movement between these dates. Our categories match this pretty well as well, apparel being obviously the 3 big ones, but we did see similar to this. And again, it's how are we coaxing the consumer out? Is it the emails? Is it the text? Is it 80% off, 70% off? There was plenty of interviews all over the news of consumers that were walking around retail stores looking for big, deep discounts, and then ultimately going and looking online and finding those products there. So yeah. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I also think the discount fatigue that, when you start shopping early, then your buying power starts to dwindle out, or if you're waiting for those, and then people just start getting inundated by so much as well that it starts to not feel concrete so much or like a true savings. I think what we're also seeing is like with buying power going down, that they're also being more intentional about what they're buying. So fewer impulse buys, fewer ancillary purchases, accessory purchases, things like that.
That's right. The power of brand loyalty and returning customers on these holiday periods is very important.
Absolutely. This one I thought, the mobile didn't surprise me here. I think mobile's been growing for a while. 70% of Black Friday, Cyber Monday traffic came from mobile. Myself included, I think I've got carpal tunnel from holding my cell phone and shopping too long. But in 56% of revenue, I think we expect this trend to continue, right? Like this is one I think no one is super surprised about with mobile. What I did find interesting, and I think you'll talk a little bit more about this, is that shopping within apps on mobile increased. So not just browser history, but in-app shopping, as you think about the Amazon app, as you think about Shein, TikTok, the Walmart app, even just shopping within these platforms has become really prevalent and increasing conversion. Do you think, have we reached the top of mobile? Will mobile continue to be?
We were talking about this, I think, a few days ago, and Instagram has started giving me new ad types, which is a return to Instagram shopping, which keeps it fully in the ecosystem and in the attention economy where followers aren't as algorithmically relevant. It is going to be these brands these tech platforms are going to be keeping the consumer as attached to the app as possible because anytime eyeballs drift away. So that is my big forecast as well, is they're going to figure out how to keep commerce in the app so that if I'm selling you something and you leave and you don't come back because you see another push notification, you may have lost eyeballs for hours or days that won't return. So mobile certainly is going to be a huge focus. And what is going to be interesting about mobile too is what is the role of agentic commerce with mobile? Because more and more of my friends are texting ChatGPT or using the app to do everyday tasks and be offered products now.
That's right. And we'll talk a little bit more about AI because there was a huge growth in AI-driven shopping and traffic this year. Buy now, pay later. This one gave me pause. This is a huge proportion of the total volume. So what they anticipate is since November 1st to year to date, estimate about 20 billion has been spent using buy now, pay later, which is an 11% year over year increase. Cyber Monday is estimated to top around 1 billion. This is a different kind of credit for many folks. And I think that my takeaway from this, at least, was that what we're seeing, again, this goes back to consumer buying power. Consumers are struggling to buy the things they want and or need, and they're using different tools in order to be able to buy those things. The buy now, pay later has seen a huge increase among both Gen Z and millennials. 41% of shoppers aged 16 to 24 were counted for this, and millennials increased their usage by 87%. And some, think about millennials, they're myself included, right? Like millennials have families, they're buying things for kids, possibly home. But this is a huge change. And especially what's really interesting here is on higher priced categories. So this isn't like it's not being used on groceries or multiple items or things like that, right? This is being used on more luxury items, more high-end items. What is your takeaway? This one kind of worried me a little bit. What's your takeaway here?
This one worries me a lot. Some widely reported stat is almost 60% of all tickets to Coachella were also bought on buy now, pay later, which is a ridiculously high number. But when looking at these numbers, it sort of contextualizes it seems to be a trend in 2025. I think people are feeling a bit tight on the wallets this year, widely reported by inflationary numbers as well as consumer confidence. And so this doesn't necessarily shock me that it's growing, but it does concern me pretty deeply. The apps are pretty easy to use if you've ever gone through their flows, and it's an incredible way to buy a product very simply, to be very, very blunt. It surprises me. I think it shows a little bit. This is also feeding into the muted numbers we saw for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, is the consumers have fewer dollars to spend on higher price items.
Agreed. I think this will be an interesting one to watch as we go into next year. So let's hop into another poll question. Are your shoppers buying more units or fewer units than last year? So we're curious if this trend that's being reported, if you're seeing it. So again, these polls are anonymous. We will not post who says what. This just helps us get insights.
Feels like I'm watching one of those horse racing simulators as they race across the screen.
Tabs are coming in. So, this looks pretty consistent with what we're seeing, that fewer units, maybe some flat to the same, but pretty low on more units. We're seeing a lot more with fewer units. So I think the audience is very much feeling what we're seeing. Okay, we can hop back into the slides.
Let's talk a little bit about promotions and pricing. It is worth noting I am a confusing consumer because I searched the web ahead of Black Friday, during Black Friday, the week since Black Friday, and I have bought nothing. I have been looking at the deals. I have been inundated. I had things in my cart that I was excited to purchase. And some of that is, as you mentioned, Courtney, the deal fatigue of I've been looking at red flashing Christmas lights for now 30 days, and I've been seeing it come from all angles. With that being said, you're seeing deal of the days, week-long deals, early deals from Target, from Walmart, from Amazon, even in the Shop app. You're seeing more and more of these deal cycles roll earlier. Prime Day being back in October, generating a big splash with that, is more and more cognizant that early promotions are continuing, and it's the retailers that are doing it. Brands are continuing to try to do it and smooth that curve, help their forecasts and help their shipping speeds. But what remains to be seen is what is the tackiness for these brands, the stickiness with these brands and consumers for, will they keep buying early, and are they interested from buying from all sources, or are they searching for the deals? Do you want to add anything? You are the marketing expert.
I know. I think the one thing about the early promotions too is there is benefit from an operations standpoint, right? Like as you think about trying to smooth out some of that spikiness and that peakiness that comes around Cyber 5, if you're able to pull that up earlier, if you're able to do a bit more demand planning off of popular SKUs, especially if you're able to, go as early as Prime Day in October, you're able to start to get that early insight and spread some of that out, which I think helps the operations run that much more, smoothly as you go into it. I will say, as we get closer to the holidays, I'm curious to see how these pull back, because as consumers, if they didn't get what they wanted, right, I imagine then the promotions get pulled back some. So that'll be interesting to watch as well. But I don't think this is going away. I think we're going to continue to see this. I think they're sort of addicted to those earlier sales and those earlier promotions and expanding that window a bit. So I think it's here to stay.
We shall see. And I think this year is a bit weird, as we mentioned. The next topic that we sort of touched on earlier is the AI driving of sales and conversion, whether it is agentic on website, whether it is ChatGPT referrals. I saw a stat reported from similar web data that says that Walmart's top referring website to walmart.com is ChatGPT, with 37% share of referrals, growing 25% in a year basis from a year ago. So they're starting to see more and more referral power coming from these AI tools, whether it's ChatGPT itself or even being displayed with the Sidekick. I have used the Shop app on Shopify. I love typing in "show me cool sneakers" that are red or blue or green and seeing the products that come to me. And then it's also creating a new feed in that Shop app that is personalized to me and actually starts to learn from what it is. And I found a lot of cool brands through that. I am much like other users in the ecosystem that are seeing AI driving their preference, driving their merchandising, and driving impact to sales. What remains to be seen here, though, is trust. This is one of the things that, how is the data getting into the model? How is the reviews being synthesized? How do small brands or brands with less media previously get into these recommendations? That's something that we're going to have to wait and see on. We know that the referrals are happening, but it's a bit of a black box. What's your take on AI and how it's driving sales or driving consumers? And is it a winner-take-all system where the best media is going to drive sales? What's your prediction, Courtney?
I think brands are going to have to SEO and e-com content. These were what it took to win in order to win the buy box. I think that game is about to change completely, and brands have to be prepared to build an AI strategy in both their content and how they merchandise products and how they bundle products and how they build out product information on sites. It's going to look a lot different. We're even seeing that truthfully within our own marketing, that what got you there with SEO won't get you there with ChatGPT or the other AI tools. That's the first thing. The second is, I think, being on some of these platforms that use AI, right? Like being there where it's easier to shop and being accessible, I think will be another one. And we'll talk more about that, I think, in the channel strategy portion. But I think making sure that you're available to be leveraged by these tools is going to be key to winning. I think next year this will only go up.
I wholeheartedly agree. I read an article this week that was citing what is the cheapest price for this item is what they plugged into AI. And the journalist was showing 3 other websites that were selling it that had turned off AI scraping from their sites. So there's a bit of a gap still that exists even with price points and product tracking? We'll see is the answer. It's going to take a lot for brands to adopt.
Imagine if you had an unindexed page that was able to do a price comparison and point people to your site.
It would be a winner situation. One of the big trends that you talked about is how tariffs are impacting both consumers and brands. I think the big stat here for me that was interesting is the impacts of landed costs was distributed across who paid it. 51% was absorbed by the brands as they were dealing with compressed margins. 37% was passed to the consumer, and 9% was taken on by the supplier. That's a huge number, and it is a big testament to brands trying to protect their consumers, protect their brand image, and not just pass on big changes. It drove margin compression during a time of the year when we do discounts and encourage consumers to spend. It can't be understated. I think, Courtney, what impacts tariff had on Black Friday this year.
Yeah, and I think what people are waiting for is what comes next, right? Then how do we look to the future? Well, and obviously we're waiting for a SCOTUS ruling right now to see if tariffs hold going into the new year. But I think ultimately how brands think about their long haul pricing strategy in terms of both margin, everyday pricing, and promotions will be critical going into next year.
You said it fantastically. There are exceptions. So we talked about on the last slide, there was a 28% average discount, which is about flat from last year for the consumer looking for deals. They were searching for something deeper than that is what's widely reported. But there are instances where brands ran bigger deals because they had larger inventory positions. Maybe they were in a better position earlier this year with the situation of tariffs. Perhaps they needed to convert cash so that they could put more into marketing during the period. But there are some brands that overly discounted comparatively.
Yeah, I even had some people to come to me and be like, I saw brands that never come with huge promotions. I had to think about this one actually for just, a second, because a lot of the brands that were able to front load in Q2 and Q3 were larger brands, right? Or brands that had more margin room, that had, that were able to take advantage of the capacity during the 90-day pause. And to your point, I think sitting on that inventory, right, they have to free up that cash flow before going into the next fiscal year. So this one was really interesting because especially some luxury brands, I saw some higher end brands that never promoted or had what felt like bigger promotions. So while I think by and large prices were up, again, I think we saw some uncharacteristic trends when it came to promotions this season.
That's right. And speaking of which, we're going to jump to a table of those trends that showcases those discounts by retailer. There's a lot on this slide. Help me understand, Courtney.
We almost didn't show this, but we were doing our homework and we're like, someone's going to want to save this or screenshot it maybe, because what we wanted to do is how can we compile across and really what we were trying to look at, right, was the winners and losers. And really it looked like most of the major retailers were up on a percentage basis. And, what was driving that, because they did have some nuances within their strategy. So we're not going to go line by line on this table, but we'll let you digest it later offline. We're going to jump into talk a little bit more deeply about Amazon, Shopify, and TikTok specifically, because I think what's going on with those is most interesting. The only thing I want to call out before we leave this is Walmart. We aren't talking specifically about Walmart and Target, but I think their omnichannel strategy is really paying off with a mix of in-store, brick and mortar, and online, and making it really easy to buy online, pick up store, check in-store inventories. So I do think that continues to be a competitive advantage when everyone else is, a pureplay.com.
More and more friends of mine have told me how amazing the 3-hour Walmart delivery is and how much it's impacted their life, that they can get things that simply. It's
pretty unreal. Yes. Okay, let's dive in. Let's talk a little bit about Amazon. The first thing I do want to caveat, Amazon does not report its Black Friday, Cyber Monday sales. These are purely estimates based off of Q3 reporting and market share, as well as general growth trends from Amazon. So these are modeled numbers of what we estimate. But we estimate that if Amazon continued the similar trend to the general e-commerce market in which we know it dominates, that 11.8 billion was sold during Black Friday, as well as around 14 billion on Cyber Monday. We also anticipate that they're seeing estimated year-over-year growth around 6 to 8%. Now, again, these are estimated figures, but they continue to be the center of gravity for the shopping season, and I think really setting the tone in promotion strategy and merchandising. And so some of their top categories can continue to be electronics, home and kitchen, beauty, fashion. And then, of course, they're leading the way as well when it comes to the AI shopping. So ask Rufus, which I haven't used Rufus actually a ton. Sometimes it happens by accident, I think, but I haven't relied on Rufus a ton. But it's kind of fun to play with. Trying to bring up exactly what you're looking for. But really, Amazon has found itself as the default search when it comes to items, that instead of going to places, people go directly to Amazon to look up an item. And I think Prime continues to be a driver of the value for the Amazon shopper, seeing fast delivery. With that being said, we'll talk at the end a bit, but fast delivery, I don't know, is as relevant as it once was. And if you're shopping early, 2-day shipping may not matter as much. So it'll be really interesting to see how that pans out. Next up, or Darby, did you want to add on Amazon?
No,
Otherwise, I'll let you talk. I was going to hand it over for Shopify.
Yeah, widely reported Shopify's earnings over the weekend. I shouldn't say earnings, their performance over the weekend, as well as on LinkedIn. It's a great follow of Harley Finkelstein sharing out what their Black Friday looked like. They are citing 27% growth year over year over the weekend. They had 81 million shoppers. They are touching so many households across America and the world. There are tons of merchants that are getting their first sales. Their average cart price was up 2-3%. 16% of orders cross borders, and there on the bottom right are the top categories. It continues to showcase, I think, a few things for Shopify. One is that they are proving that they are the platform for brands that are running their own sites and their own e-commerce, and they are the de facto, and more brands are moving. They outperformed the sales across growth across sales channels, and you have to assume that that's because they've won more and more brands coming to their platform. Truly incredible. I, again, was not shocked by these numbers, but it's always awesome to see how they display it. They had a wonderful pinball game celebrating how well their Black Friday, Cyber Monday sales were going, and they were all over the media with how much they are powering entrepreneurship across the world.
Awesome. And one correction, sorry, those, just to be clear on the Amazon ones before numbers, I just wanted to clarify, those are not Amazon, those were the total market, but if we assume a total market share of 35% or so of Amazon of those numbers, apologies. Just wanted to add a clarifier there on the previous numbers.
Perfect.
Let's talk TikTok next.
TikTok, this is a rocket ship that went off over the weekend where they had $500 million in sales over the weekend. The users that have purchased from it are saying they will shop more on the platform. They are loving the experience. I don't have TikTok myself, Courtney. Do you have TikTok? Are you on TikTok? Are you seeing?
I'm not on TikTok. This is when my elder millennial is showing. I spend, it's like you, more time on Instagram, but I'm sure, this is surging. People, the shopping behavior, the influencers. Now, I am influenced by influencers on a regular basis. So this does resonate with me, but I'm not on TikTok.
It's worth noting the app in East Asia for TikTok is predominantly a social commerce app. Here in the United States, North America, it is a social media app with many people dancing, doing memes, great things. But over there, it is driving a lot of commerce. And here it is growing. 8 to 9% of total sales are attributed to social commerce, but it's expected to grow over the next 5 to 10 years. And there's predictions for how fast and there's predictions for how slow, but the answer is it's all eyes on what's going to happen with social commerce because it's moving the needle. $500 million in the weekend after a few years ago not even existing is absolutely something brands should be paying attention to and understanding how they can fulfill those orders compliantly and with TikTok and bet big on it if it aligns with their brand.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. The fact that over 80% of users say they'll shop on the platform, that level of intent, I think, if you're a D2C brand especially, or any brand really, if you're not thinking about maybe how you're tapping into this platform, I think it's a huge opportunity, especially with younger audiences.
The one thing I think is we've yet to see how social commerce will behave, if it's like a marketplace or if it's more like a brand store. What is the AOV that's coming from these sales? Are people buying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items? I haven't seen clear data come out on it yet, but I would predict it would be more like a marketplace where their consumer is buying 1 or 2 items most, and then perhaps buying again from another creator or on another sale. But that's the other thing that we're watching closely, is how do consumers behave on social commerce? It's not yet fully clear.
Right, especially when you think about trial. I know that there's been some experimentation with like bundles and how you can make it easier to buy multiple items, and that's actually true across the board. I think we saw a lot more in terms of bundled merchandise and promotions, but that makes it easier to click once to get more than one item, especially for beauty, where maybe you're trying a bunch of small, a bunch at the same time, reducing the risk and increasing the cart value.
As I do. I definitely need to overhaul my beauty routine, so I will be clicking one-shop purchasing plenty of things.
We've been talking about you, so I'm glad you recognize.
The daily sunscreen is helpful, but I don't do it nearly as daily as it should be.
Come for the e-commerce advice, stay for the SPF recommendations.
Everybody should wear sunscreen. In that same vein of social commerce, in-app checkout adoption is going to become more and more and more imperative. I mentioned it earlier, but as we are in the quote attention economy, brands, apps, platforms, they're all looking for how do they retain those customers' eyeballs, how do they retain their attention, and how do they keep them on their platforms. In-app checkout is going to be a driving force of the future of the attention economy, and whoever does this the worst will actually, we predict, shrink, because they are going to be giving their eyeballs to other platforms. Courtney, what do you want to add here? I think all of these are great experiences, by the way. If you've ever bought anything on any of these platforms, they have made them fantastic.
These help, especially late night when you don't want to put in your address and all the details, right? Like being able to just use a little face scan and be on your way. I think in many ways, Apple Pay and Shop Pay are sort of the answer to Amazon Prime, where it was so easy just to add to cart or buy now within Amazon Prime. Amazon was the first to really make that simple. Apple Pay, Shop Pay make that easy. And Fastlane, I haven't used Fastlane as much, but Apple Pay, Shop Pay, I can speak to personally, make it so much more simple to shop across the other platforms as well. So again, as you're thinking about next year and some of these tools and strategies, if you aren't hooked up with a platform that makes this easy, you're probably leaving money on the table.
Yeah, and when you swipe up on those ads on Instagram, it fully populates your entire address and all that. You double click for Apple Pay, you can check out in less than a minute.
And they're still not getting you to buy their goods. It's amazing.
We are now going to talk about inventory fulfillment and returns. This was a report that was put together by Flexport earlier this year at one of our ocean or freight webinars. And 83% of brands report having enough or more than enough ahead of Black Friday. Our question to you on the next is, we have activated a poll, which is, how do you feel about that same question today? Did you have enough inventory? Did you have too much? Where are you sitting at today for your inventory levels after Black Friday, Cyber Monday?
Okay. We're letting votes come in.
We're having votes come in. I have what I need seems to be leading. I have way too much is trailing, and I have too much together. So it's changing again. I have what I need seems to be the strong indicator. So we're seeing similar poll results to what we saw before, which is lovely to hear. I have what I need, not overextended too much, not underextended. This is fantastic to hear.
Yeah. This is the Goldilocks of inventory results right here.
Not too hot, not too cold, not too many, not too little.
That's right. So that's good news. And I think a lot of the next questions come into, then what's the ocean air cargo, what does the cargo outlook like for December and January as we head into Q1 replenishment. So I think the rest of the season is going to tell us, how much we're going to expect.
That's true. There was a webinar yesterday by our air team where they were reviewing that exact question in great detail. I cannot pretend to fathom the air market like they understand it deeply. I would suggest if you're looking for insight into what the air market or rushing inventory ahead of a winter launch would look like, tune into that and then subscribe to that webinar because they give great market updates over and over again throughout the weeks. So healthy little plug for if you're in that position. What we're also seeing returns. January is coming. My wife hopefully doesn't return anything because I'm the one who has to take those packages to UPS, FedEx, or the post office. However, January is at peak returns. I was on site on Monday with our warehouse lead, and they were sharing with the team that it may be peak for 6 weeks when it comes to receiving, and then it may be peak for 3 weeks, 4 weeks as it comes to shipping outbound. And he goes, but then we are blessed by another 6 to 8 weeks of peak for returns and inbounds all over again. This is going to be stretching providers across America, depending, right? If what held up over Black Friday, Cyber Monday, which is we are seeing healthy sales, but maybe a little down, and a cash-strapped consumer, we are predicting that there will be more returns than ever in January, which is not what anyone wants to hear, unfortunately. But the reality is it's most likely that return rates will increase. Our current customers, on average, across a portfolio of it, see about a 5 to 10%. There's some apparel customers, footwear customers that see higher than that. There's some other customers that see far lower. There's some customers that see no returns or don't offer it. So this is a bit of a mixed bag, but it's worth noting there is predicted that returns will surge in January with the softening of consumer confidence and the real dollars in their pocket. Courtney, anything to add on returns? You're not planning to return anything yet.
No, I'm going to forget about it till it's too late and keep it anyway. So that's usually my MO. Awesome. I'm going to keep us moving for the sake of time because we've got a couple more slides so we can get to Q&A. So planning ahead. Darby, I'll let you actually hit on a few of these and then we can chat and then let's go to Q&A.
Great. Strategic priorities for brands and retailers. One is strengthen tariff resilience. Whether or not, as Courtney mentioned, the SCOTUS case or any number of rulings will come down or not, the answer is every day matters, and where you make your goods and how you ship those goods and the cost mitigations of how you get those to your end consumers are front of mind. Returns reclamation. We showed that 5 to 10% rate. Make sure you're getting a good restock rate on those returns because that is strengthening your tariff resilience. If you can return to stock more units than you did 3 months ago at a slightly higher cost, the answer is your landed cost equation may make that extra cost with your provider be well worth it. Second one is, we talked a lot about pricing strategies. Study what happened with the consumers over Black Friday, study what's coming up with your upcoming promotions, and make sure you are putting the consumer in mind, understanding where they're at from a cash position, and positioning your brand that way so that you can reach them. Channel strategy keys. We talked a lot about agentic. We talked a lot about social commerce. We talked a lot about the different platforms that are seeing sales and reporting figures. The answer is be where the consumer is in a softened spending environment, knowing where the eyeballs are and being present where those eyeballs are, as long as they meet your brand goals, is a massive part of success. It is going to determine in many cases big sale days versus no sale days. And even in many cases, can you meet the moment of a TikTok post blowing up, for instance? Fourth, optimizing fulfillment speed and returns. It doesn't always have to be fast. Right now, one of the things that Courtney mentioned is the consumer wants to know when it's showing up, not necessarily that it's showing up in 30 minutes. The biggest thing is if you can offer them economic speed with a reliable date present at a cost that's not too much and it doesn't take way too long, we are seeing that consumers are returning at higher rates to those brands that are fast enough, cheap enough, and reliable. And the last one is, we didn't know how to predict AI accurately. We were a bit of a shot in the dark because things are changing so fast. But the answer is have those conversations around the PDP, the SEO. How do I buy a gift for a 17-year-old in high school that loves basketball, is going to be typed into ChatGPT and other models over and over again over the next couple of weeks? The big thing is to make sure you start addressing the SEO and understanding how those products are going to be merchandised in those systems. I don't know that anybody knows, but we have hunches. Courtney, anything to add else? I think we're going to jump soon to Q&A.
We do have a couple questions. So let's see. The first is from Drew. was Cyber Monday really that much bigger than Black Friday? The one thing I'll say, so we try to get the data from like Adobe Analytics and some of the other sources. I would say within some margin of error, it looks like Black Friday was or Cyber Monday was bigger. That's at least what the data is reporting. I would give it some margin of error, especially as things are spread over the course of those few days. What we actually saw from a Flexport standpoint, I believe, Darby, keep me honest here, our Black Friday was bigger than our Cyber Monday. So I don't think it's a one size fits all necessarily, but I think that was the larger trend, but I wouldn't put too much stock into that.
That's right. We'll get better and better data as the days pass. Many conflicting reports were given. The biggest takeaway there, though, is brick and mortar in-store purchases were down comparatively, and e-commerce still accelerated at the rate it was forecasted to, which yielded less goods purchased, though. We've covered that. Go ahead.
I was going to go to the second question. From Graham, what are the two biggest consumer behavior differences in what we saw with Black Friday, Cyber Monday? I think we covered that. I would vote, I think it's AI, the influence of AI shopping, as well as buy now, pay later. I think those, to me, were probably the two biggest differences. What do you think?
I think the third one from me would be the move away from brick and mortar retail on Black Friday, or the move away from doorbusters. I had a friend report that they were giving away 100 things at a particular retailer, and after 11 o'clock, they still had things to give away. They didn't have the rush at the 8 a.m. open. So.
Okay, for the sake of time, I'm gonna ask this, but again, you can reach out to us. We can respond. Please drop us a line. We're happy to talk to you one-on-one. This one is from Evan. What are you seeing in delivery carrier performance? Anyone growing or especially going above and beyond or struggling?
It's a bit of a challenge to answer this question for the mass markets. I've been trying to pay attention to what's the news that's being reported. We work very closely with our carrier partners and provide very accurate forecasting. As we mentioned, we were able to hit our shipping goals, and we've been shipping very quickly those orders. That same data is getting handed over to our carriers, and we're making a plan with them directly. We have not seen any outright failures to my knowledge. We have not seen anybody struggling overly. Again, I would say if you pay attention to the earnings calls for these carriers, they've been building capacity over the last few years after the pandemic. And so I think we are seeing that capacity getting used, and we aren't seeing any major failures. Luckily, it doesn't seem like there's any crazy winter storms. It's snowing up in Washington State on the east side, but it is not affecting national commerce the same way that it has in previous years, where entire swaths of the country were covered in snow. So no major carrier failures to my knowledge. I have not seen any major news that cites the same, but that is what we are seeing.
Amazing. Well,
and deliveries are fast, so if carriers are having problems, that is not possible.
That's true. That's true. Well, thank you, Darby, and thank you everyone who joined us today for our Black Friday, Cyber Monday recap webinar. Wishing you all a wonderful holiday season. Take care.
It's the most wonderful time of the year. Have a good one.
Have a good one.